Good afternoon, everybody, and good evening to my guests who are in beautiful. Well, I'll let them tell you where they are. My name is Jennifer West. I am the artistic director of Muse West Concerts, and I am situated on the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people. And I'm very grateful to be hosting our podcast Take Note. And my guests are the fantastic Echéa Quartet. So, greetings. Where are you coming to us from today?
We're coming to you from Biella, Italy.
Wow. Which part of Italy is that in?
It's actually in the foothills of the Alps, all the way in the Piedmont region, quite close to Turin. And it's a very sort of picture postcard, beautiful, quaint little town. And we're here doing some master classes with the violinist, one of the violinists from the Kuss Quartet. We've been waiting like nearly 2 years to meet him, so we're happy to have finally made this trip.
I'm sure. And you made it okay from the UK. All the travel documents. It wasn't too crazy.
It's been
Yeah,
hard,
especially
so.
with Brexit as well now. It's a bit.
Well, I was going to add that to the topic of conversation, but I wasn't sure if I should because it's. Oh goodness. Actually, the first thing I thought of when Brexit happened was what is going to happen to musicians? It literally the first thing that went through my head. What's going to happen when people are touring? How are they going to manage? But I think that hopefully they will work out something where if there's like frequent travel, frequent visa, it would be great. We'll start with a few fun questions, and then we're going to dig into the project that's coming up on Sunday, October 17th, which I'm really looking forward to hearing. What is your favorite post-concert meal and drink? You should introduce yourselves first, actually. Why don't you say your name and then your favorite post-concert meal and drink? We'll start with Eliza.
Hi, hello, I'm Eliza. I'm born and bred in London in the United Kingdom. I've spent 2 glorious months in Canada. We did a wonderful tour of the west coast of North America, where in Vancouver in particular, where I first met Jennifer. And my favorite post-concert food, I've got one particular event that happened after we did this wonderful concert in the Musikverein in Vienna, and we were collaborating and playing separately to another Viennese quartet, and they were like, "You have to come to this incredible place." And we went and we had sauerkraut and sausage and huge steins of beer, and it was like a cold January evening, and it was exactly perfect. I mean, for that time, for the vegans amongst us, less good, but I really enjoyed it. So,
I
yeah.
would have enjoyed that with you. Maybe next to Rosa.
Hi, I'm Rosa. I have to say, probably pasta would be my meal of choice, and beer, maybe. Depends on the day, or wine. After a concert.
Well, you'll have to come to British Columbia and sample some of our Okanagan wines. Shout out to Painted Rock Winery and Burrowing Owl because after my little wine tour of the Okanagan last summer, I came up, those two are probably my favorites. So if they're listening, we would love some after concert sponsorship wine. would, would be lovely. And Rosa, are you from London as well?
I'm from Manchester. I lived in London for probably 7 years or something. Yeah, but I'm from Manchester, from the north of England.
Wonderful. Fantastic. And finally, the Canadian in the group.
I'm Alieta, and I'm from Vancouver, the home of Muse West. And favorite post-concert snack and drink. I think definitely beer. I'm thinking of our incredible craft beer in Vancouver. And as for snack, I think by the time I have a beer in me after a concert, I'm ready for bed. So I think I'd angle straight for sleep from that point.
That's a really good point. Um, so we've been trying something, well, we're about to try something new at Muse West where our concerts are 70 minutes, no intermission, and everybody's at home in bed by 9. How do people think of the idea of shorter concerts? What are your thoughts on that? No intermission, no two 45-minute halves. What do we think?
I think actually, like particularly with COVID and with the lack of sort of possibility of socializing in an interval space, I think having a program which is like short and sweet is something that is really not to be missed, and stripping back from this obsession with programming hugely long and sometimes inaccessible pieces is actually kind of incredible, because it's not only a challenge for the performers who have to put together something succinct and say what they want to say in a very short period, but also for the listeners, you kind of stay on your toes and you have a much more palatable piece and like much more to take away. So I'm a big fan of very short and sweet concerts and bed by 9.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think as well that we found that our audience is going to appreciate that, because we assume in classical music that people are like on the same sort of coming in with the same level of, like you said, level of obsession with longer works, and that they have the same level of accessibility, but sometimes that's just not true. And we can't project that onto our audiences.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it too, because it means that I can have supper before 10 p.m. on concert days. It's exciting. You have the opportunity to world premiere, and we do desperately wish that it was in Vancouver, just up the block at our beautiful performance space in Point Grey. Shout out to St. Helens Anglican Church for being the most hospitable venue hosts we've ever met, and the Point Grey Business Association for their support. We wish you were here, but you're going to be world premiering this through recording in London at the Royal College of Music, if I'm not mistaken, which is also kind of exciting because this would be Muse West's first performance in London, England. Very cool, very cool. Tell us, specifically with this piece, actually, let's start with the general. This probably is not the first time the quartet's worked with a brand new piece or a new composer or contemporary composer. Tell me, what is your process when you're learning contemporary work? No one else has touched it. It's yours to try. What's the process?
I'd say that the way that we approach contemporary work is identical to the way that we approach Haydn or Mozart. That might seem surprising, but particularly with a composer like Jared, who writes very lush harmonies, working through his quartet under tempo, kind of identifying where the harmonic landmarks are, what the emotional timbre of different harmonies is. That's exactly how we work through a Haydn or a Mozart or Beethoven. And it's definitely how we approach Jared as well.
It's not that different. And this piece, Phoenix, Jared wrote this as a response to New York, but also the world, I think, opening up again after the quiet of COVID-19, or I guess the most quiet period. I suppose now the period we're in is go about your business, but make sure you're vaccinated and have a mask and have all the papers with you, as you just experienced traveling. So how does this piece, and I'll be asking Jared the same question in a few weeks, but my question is, how does this piece express the world waking up from its slumber again?
I think that's definitely a challenging question to answer, in that it's probably subjective for each of us. But I'm inclined to say that so many of the textures feel very timeless in their nature, the way that he juxtaposes different conflicting rhythms over top of each other, and the way that he has these very kind of rhythmic and constant entries, but with this texture that is very kind of difficult to identify what's happening rhythmically. And then sometimes you feel kind of the texture soar up and then kind of murmur back down. So there are kind of these perhaps reaches out of the status quo.
Yeah.
You could read it that way.
And it definitely goes from something that's in the background to in the foreground, which was, I guess, us with the dissemination of news about COVID. It was very much there and something that we were actively engaged in, and then something that we would try and avert our eyes from. And I think particularly with his use of harmonics and changing from sul tasto to oud quite a lot of the time, that's very much he toys with past and present and sort of reality and imagination quite a lot, which is a really, really beautiful world, and amazing that he manages to capture that so realistically. So we love that.
And Rosa, did you have any thoughts on this new piece by Canadian composer Jared Miller? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm just enjoying getting to know it so much, enjoying exploring this work. So just the harmonies are so beautiful, so I'm just really enjoying everything. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is a wonderful trademark of this piece. I've had a chance to look at the score and I was like, oh, this is gonna sound great. And Jared said he's really sorry to the cellist because he made the cello part really hard. So Eliza, if you're surviving it, awesome.
It's just about blend. It's just about quartet technique at the end of the day. It's nothing to do with the part. So
That's awesome. You actually stole my transition to the next kind of topic I wanted to talk about, which is perfect. I love it when people steal the transition because then I don't have to. It's great. Quartet playing and solo playing, how are they the same? How are they different? And I'll start with Rosa. What do you think?
I'd say in quartet we have kind of a mixture of everything. You have to do so many different kinds of techniques, and you have to play solo, you have to blend with everyone else, you have to listen, you have to kind of provide a blanket for other people. So it's what I find really amazing about chamber music is the fact that we get to do all these different roles, and in solo playings it's not so much providing support for your colleagues as much as it is with chamber music, which is what is really feels really nice to be able to do. Yeah.
For sure. What about you, Elieta? What would you say are the kind of differences between solo playing and quartet playing?
I feel like Rosa summarized that really beautifully. And if I were to add anything, I'd just add the emotional difference, which I think is one of the most powerful things for me is the difference between being alone and being able to, you know, look over your shoulder at your colleagues and your friends. It is a really kind of beautiful experience to share it with people.
It is, and that's the sense I've gotten from being an audience member at the Banff International String Quartet competition since 2007. Oh my gosh, that's a long time. I don't think I've missed one since then. And did they skip one for COVID? No, they didn't. They lucked out because it's next summer. Okay. I was thinking, when was the last one? It was 2019. Okay. So Eliza, here's a cello question for you. Does the cello have a particular role in quartet? Because when I've looked at some quartet scores, sometimes I see, of course, there's a lot of bass support. The cello can also have a solo role. Do you have any quartets where the cello gets to shine, like any favorite sections or movements where you're like, hey, I get my turn, this is awesome?
I reflecting actually on what Rosa said, I think that the cello occupies this, it sort of straddles the role between needing to support hugely and also dominate as well at the same time within that support. But top cello moments, I think, of recent experience is probably the minor theme in the second movement, Death of the Maiden, but because the texture is completely bizarre. You've got this like viola sham, jump, 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 and then you've got this hurdy-gurdy thing happening in the second violin, and then all these semiquavers. So like trying to have your voice heard is a struggle, and you kind of have to command with your, not with how you approach rehearsal, but with your sound. You have to command your colleagues in a way that makes them listen, and all within a piano dynamic. So that I find that a very, very, very tricky cello moment. We're playing. We've been sort of starting the development of 132 and have been getting into that. And there are some really, really incredibly complex cello moments. Death and the Maiden and 132, I guess.
Oh, Death and the Maiden has got to be one of my favorites. And going back to our conversation about programming, that would be a perfect example of where I actually wouldn't program any other piece. That would be the recital. That's it,
It's running for itself, I think.
It is. It's quite sufficient itself. Again, awesome transition to late Beethoven, talking about 132. Does everybody have a favorite late Beethoven quartet? If so, which one?
I love 130. I can't wait to play it.
Yeah. I guess, well, 132, we've started the first 3 movements or so, and I think we've talked quite a lot about this very bizarre 5-movement structure with this incredible Heiliger Dankesang just in the center, and how it intersperses in terms of his style and the way that each movement is set up, from being very individualistic to institutional to individual to institutional, and this kind of constant paradigm between what has gone before and his own individual forward-thinking style. And I think that really typifies a lot of what he does in his late quartets. But that slow movement is a world of its own. So.
It is a world of its own, for sure. What about you, Elieta? Any favorite late Beethoven quartets?
Oh gosh, it's such an impossible question, but going off from the slow movement of 132, the slow movement of 127,
Good choice.
Astounding.
Try thinking about it.
Yeah.
Good choice. I think my favorite recording of those late quartets is the Brentano quartet.
Yeah.
They're just superb.
Amazing.
It's
They're
true.
Really
It's
well.
true. Very true indeed. Another question I had is, are there quartets, like historical quartets or kind of legendary quartets, whose recordings or playing has inspired you as a quartet? So many.
I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, just from talking about Death and the Maiden, there's that incredible music video of the album Berg quartet, which is them kind of like in the round with like shadows, and it's sort of ridiculous, and kind of like this cinematography aspect of it is like kind of sublime, but also like nothing, I don't know, of its time, I guess. But they sound incredible, and they've like just playing quartet, but with all this weird stuff around that recording. Yeah,
for sure. Now you're also programming a Haydn work for the virtual recital. Can please tell me a bit about that work as well?
I feel like the 64s, the Opus 64s, aren't actually performed that much. Right now we're starting to work on 76 number 2 fifths, and that whole set is performed all the time. And we programmed 64 number 1, which is an incredibly buoyant, cheerful, joyous work, with a stunning third movement and a flashy finish, as always, as to be expected for Haydn.
Fantastic.
What is amazing about the 64s is that they're actually quite late, and he's like by this point very much refined what I feel like he's discovered and like defined what he likes and what he knows. And there's always in the development of the first movement, I hope that you'll hear these incredible chain of suspensions that just like pass by in this otherwise, as you were saying, very buoyant, very cheerful landscape. And there's always something very clever at work underneath. And we love like playing things in motion, very slow motion, to see that.
Mhm.
Excellent. A couple more questions before we wrap up. Tell us about the space you'll be recording in at the Royal College of Music. How is that hall? Is it quite resonant for a quartet? I haven't had a chance to visit it, but I imagine it looks beautiful from what I've seen on YouTube videos from master classes.
Yeah, it's a stunning hall. It actually was only built a couple of years ago. So even when Rosa was studying at the college, it wasn't there
No,
yet.
it's completely new. Yeah.
It kind of looks like an old Viennese hall.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Cool. It's going to look great on video. So excited. And my final question for anybody, I notice it is like super popular for high school kids to form quartets at their pre-college conservatories. And they kind of get together and they form these groups. They read through the music. They have a coach. They even enter like, junior division chamber music recital competitions. And in the Fishcloth, there's like a junior division and intermediate. These kids are pretty good too. What advice would you give to a young quartet, like high school, who they want to get together, they want to play music together, and you're their coach? Like, what would your ground rules be for them? Like, how would you encourage them as a quartet? Like, what do young quartets need when they're first starting out?
I guess like one is courage to stick with it, because as we've discovered with personnel changes, it is much harder to start a quartet than it is to join one. So once you've got that and you've found people that you really like as a base, that's like whatever your gut is saying is usually right. And from there things change. But establish who you like to play with and stick with it for a bit. Pretty much.
Absolutely. That's awesome. It has been such a pleasure to speak with the fantastic Echéa Quartet joining us today from northern Italy. Please eat all the pasta for me. Eat all the food, enjoy all the lovely wine, and we look forward to the concert, which will have Haydn Opus 62 and Jared Miller's brand new piece with very generous support from the SOCAN Foundation here in Canada. That will be on Sunday, October 17th, and that will be at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. Eastern, because we do have quite a few fans over in New York and Montreal and Toronto. So either after lunch for us on the West Coast, before supper for East Coast, or right before bed in the UK. And we are looking forward to that so much. And wish you all the best and safe travels back to the UK once you're done in Italy. And thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jennifer West. I am the host of this podcast, Take Note. Thank you very much.